Call the meeting to order. This is a meeting of the Durham Point Property Owners Association Board of Directors. Robert's Rules of Order govern this meeting. Please get a acknowledgement by the chair before you speak. I guess we'll just go right down the line, although I'm somewhat inclined to get the trivia out of the way. We'll just go down the line. Tonight we're going to reaffirm our policies and procedures and our committees and ethics, and these are things we do every year. For those of you who haven't been through this before, all we do is reaffirm what we, so that things will continue on as they have been. I will note that policies and procedures probably need some updating. There's a committee working on that. Although I just got finished reading through them, it's not totally egregious, but some things need updating. The ethics agreement, I think Kurt's the only one who's not up to date on that, and we can talk about it later if you want, Kurt. And that's, we have other things as well. There has been some questions to the status of our budget. We don't have one. It's my opinion that we're operating without a budget, and that's because we haven't had one approved by the general membership. The budget for fiscal year 2014 expired on June 30th, as it does every year. So we're forced to operate without a budget until the general membership approves a new one. As a result, we need to exercise sound fiscal judgment in our spending to keep us on an even keel until we do have a budget to work from. So when we have an expenditure that comes before this board, we need to keep that in mind and make sure that any budget we take forward from that point is going to be in there. Okay, since our last meeting, as a result of complaints from several members of the community about the budget published in the spring newsletter, I asked Amy and the Finance Committee to reevaluate the budget and bring us their findings. Amy will, I'm sure, have a report on that from the Finance Committee for our consideration tonight. The changes that I'm aware of are to some extent the result of being a month into the fiscal year and having a better idea of what we're spending. And actually some mistakes that we found. With your approval, I will have, if we get the approval for this budget tonight, I'll have it put into the fall newsletter so that it can be out to the membership for the September meeting. And that's all I have. No public here, so we're going to skip that. We have a motion on the July 8th minutes. Approval of minutes for July 8th.
I so moved.
Second. Okay. Any input? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Office update. Read the church.
Okay, as we were discussing a little bit ago, we had a contractor cut a cable, a Verizon cable. We're installing a street sign post, and we've received a letter from Verizon that we will receive a bill for the repair. I called Verizon, and she could not tell me. The woman I spoke with could not give me a price. She said it will take a couple of weeks. And I also called our insurance company to find out what our deductible is on something like that. It's $500. So I guess depending on the amount of the bill, we'll either file a claim or not. Also with regard to striping, restriping of some of the roads that were rejuvenated, contacted 3 different contractors for proposals. We received a proposal from W&W Striping for $3,500. One from Hawk on Demand Striping, $3,052. I think Jeff, you gave me that name? Hawk on Demand?
No.
I don't know where I got that name. And I called Copenhagen Asphalt, and they were going to come and meet with me, but they never showed up. So those are the 2 I have.
But let me stop you. I'm concerned about the striping because, especially the stop bars, The stop signs aren't there, and a lot of times people have a tendency to drive right through stop signs if there's not a stop bar. So I'd kind of like to get this striping done. It would come out of the STD funds. But can I get a motion on these two bids?
I move that we take the lower of the two bids.
Whatever. Have you ever heard of this, guys?
They were,
Hawk on demand
no,
striping.
where are they out of? I haven't heard of them.
Hawk on demand, Richmond, Hampton Roads, Beltsville. Beltsville, I
Oh,
think.
they've got an office in Phillips. That's only an hour and a half away.
Right.
Okay, do I have a second for the motion?
We're gonna wait and see what, well, that's part of the discussion.
Yeah, that's right. Need a second, I'll second. Okay, so, there's the two prices, there's not that much difference between the two prices, is there?
About $500. Although W&W striping term there is an estimated total, which I guess is not unusual.
That's the lower one?
No, this is the higher
The
one.
higher one.
Yeah. Do you have an opinion at all?
The only question I would have between the two contractors would be if they were going to use a striping truck or do it by hand with a hand cart machine. Generally, a striping truck does a better job. It's uniform. I don't know. I'm not familiar with that outfit. And W&W does it both ways, I believe.
Well, it says here equipment 3400 line laser striper machine,
Yeah.
gas powered.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that necessarily
It's a walking
indicates a truck. Yeah, it doesn't sound like a striping truck.
Yeah, it doesn't really.
Yeah.
Well, the job we have really isn't that huge.
No, it's not. I mean, a lot of times it's, if you're good at it, even with a hand striper machine, you can do a nice job. I had some done today with a hand striper. It was adequate. But, yeah, that's the only consideration I have, getting stripers.
Any other discussion then? Yeah, Amy?
The lower estimate seems to be a walking machine, and the higher estimate, does it say either or?
No, well, in the past, it's been a truck, or,
I don't,
a ride-on device.
But-
W&W is fairly local, aren't
yeah, they're out of the plate, I believe.
And what do they say? We just don't have any thought that they're gonna,
In the past, it's been done on ride-on truck or.
buy W&W.
Yes, they've done it for us in the past.
I don't have a problem going below this. We're talking about striping, getting the striping and the stop bars up. The two bids are $3,500 from WW and this other outfit for $3,052. It would be paid for out of STD funds.
And there's a motion on the floor.
Motion on the floor, sorry.
To take the cheaper one. And we know the cheaper one will do it with a walking machine.
We expect.
You don't know, but maybe, yeah.
I will point out that this is an estimate. It may be more or less based on actuals. So, but it shouldn't be
That laser
significant.
could be a truck, because, normally, they'll shoot a laser ahead of the truck, and that's what they use to track, for the striking.
We said it was a gasoline prepared laser device.
Yeah, so that could
That's
indicate
that's a
hand.
walker.
Probably.
Yeah,
Striper
that,
machine.
right. I mean, the trucks work off lasers also, but I think you're right, Max.
Except they didn't say truck.
Yeah.
Or diesel powered, or why bother to say gasoline?
Right, right.
A small engine.
Could be an electric.
But
Say gas.
but at the same time, it's a savings too.
Okay, the motion on the floor is to give it the work to this Hawk, somebody, I've never heard of him,
Hawk On Demand Striping Company Incorporated.
out of Beltsville.
Do we have any information on their reliability, what kind of work they do?
No recommendations.
And they didn't give us any references for anything else that they've done.
WW's worked for us before.
And we have no opinion from Jeff.
Can I ask,
Although that's a walk behind machine, yes.
how subtle is this? I mean, is it cut and dry, or is it subtle?
Well, there's lots of variations of the type of paints used. We, you know,
Well, do we know that from the estimates? I mean,
Well, they specify in
That's
the
a term,
the
traffic.
Hawkins, so there's a Sherwin-Williams traffic painter. I don't know if WW.
and of course the machine is, it kind of depends. I'm sure all of you have seen at one point or another riding down the road and all of a sudden the line goes. I mean, you know, these things can happen, especially if you have a tough night the night before. So,
Yeah, what are the two prices again?
I might point out that if W&W did it last time, did they?
Yes.
at W&W is what we had done.
They put the stripe on Lake Place in the wrong place, in two respects. It was offset about 30, 35 feet away from the corner instead of from the corner to the roundabout, through the roundabout. And secondly, it was too close to my property by about 2 feet at a certain point. So, you know, even with a truck, it wasn't perfect. They're not, that area is not in question this time, and it looks like they did a perfectly good job on the rest of the roads.
I'm going to call for a vote. They reiterate the motion is for the low price bid from Hawk on Demand. All those in favor of awarding the contract to them, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 2. So it carries 4-2. All right, I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
That's right. Okay, as you will recall, on Mill Creek Drive, the property owners had erected a wall, and we instead erected, we had that removed and the right-of-way restored and had a guardrail put there. We then filed a claim against the property owners for partial payment for the restoration of the right-of-way. And that case was heard today, it was supposed to have been heard today in small claims court. And Gary and I drove up at 9 to hear the case, and the owners had not filed a notice to defend. And because they had not filed the paperwork, the case was postponed. So I'm sure we'll receive correspondence as to when that will be rescheduled.
And the judge recused himself.
And the judge has recused himself because apparently when he was a lawyer 20 years ago, or at some point, he used to help Drum Point file claims and so on for covenant fees.
I didn't get it.
Name him.
Didn't get it.
I
Surprise,
think of
surprise.
his name.
Huh?
It's the same
Surprise,
gentleman
surprise.
that's been there in the past when we've been up there. I'll say that.
I'm
I
seeing.
can't think of his name. So I will keep you informed on that.
Petrocelli.
Yeah. That was a show, wasn't it? Anyway, all right, the shed on Calvert Drive that was erected by another property owner in our right-of-way has been removed. And he's also removed a retaining wall he built there and some pavers. So that's the good news. And Toll Griffith will be here Toll Griffith being our accountants, will be here on the 15th of August and doing the audit, and I'll help them gather additional paperwork. I'm working on some right now that they've requested. I sent the initial documentation to them, and I've received an email requesting more. So that's what I'm working on. That's it.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
We'll go round table. We'll start over on this end. Kurt, do you have anything?
Well, the other thing I was going to mention was that we've now found and have access to these biologs for these check
This is
dams.
one?
And we're waiting for some stakes to stake them in. As soon as we get those, we could probably start installing them this next week.
I didn't see any poison ivy down there. That didn't mean there.
I want to wear my Civic suit.
Okay,
That's all I have.
nothing from Dan.
Anything at this time?
Amy,
Nothing this month,
Fran,
nothing right now.
Max.
Yeah, I attended the CRE last night. They had a meeting on the municipality movement over there. Their strategic planning group held their last meeting, and they are moving on to a municipality committee to proceed. Tony Data, who was in the original municipality movement, gave a presentation again showing basically the demographics and the money and the economy and all that kind of stuff, showing the thing. Basically, they expect to receive some $7 million of income from property taxes and income taxes alone, as opposed to their current $3.5 million budget. So they're going to double their income. The boundaries were discussed. They're going to go simple, basically the CRE boundaries. So they're proposing it beyond the referendum will be on the ballot 2016. So they're going to be talking to HOAs and different groups in the next year.
I'm sure that we'll have to have a discussion about that. I'll come back to you in a second.
Okay, fine.
Anything else, Max?
No.
Barbara, do you have anything?
No, you want to take a vote of just confidence about the CR. We're going to the CRE. I don't know that we need to spend millions of dollars to buy a police department, fire department. I've been through that before.
Yeah, I'm of the opinion we'll talk about it when we have to talk about it. I'm
They'll
sure
be
we all have
around.
opinions.
They will be around.
Yeah, they'll come. Amy, you want the floor?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot to make an announcement. If you'll recall, this board came out and resolved in favor of a full environmental impact statement for Dominion Cove Point LNG expansion. And relevant to the topic, League of Women Voters, I was really surprised to find this out, August 14th is holding another roundtable discussion on as yet unresolved safety and risk issues from the proposed expansion. And I think we probably should link to whatever their formal announcement is. It's on our website.
Okay.
Remind me when it happens.
All right, let's move on to committee reports then. First one is Jeff.
Not too much to report, although the emergency pipe replacement repair that we had discussed at last month's meeting, or that came up, was I did get approval for emergency repair, even though we hadn't got our permit, blanket permit from the county yet, grading permit. So that was taken care of pretty promptly, I guess within a week, and that was completed last Friday. Friday before.
Yeah.
Okay. Not once. But ABM Construction did it, and everything was done well and approved, and I processed everything through the county last week. So.
Okay.
How much did that one cost?
I think it was 3,500.
3,500.
Yeah, just under.
Okay. No report from the roads committee. There's been no action since last meeting. Finance, Amy.
Yes. As Gary noted, you have it in your packet. The Finance Committee has revised a yearly planning budget, and you've had it since yesterday. There are not a lot of surprises. If you'll recall, in preparation for the board approving the previous version of this to go to the community in June, I believe that was at the June meeting, I explained the focus. I am going to explain it again very briefly, but there are a couple of small changes. The focus was that we have to let our belts out a little bit from the severe tightening we started 3 years ago because of things are have to be taken care of. We're still on a belt tightening budget. We have allotted $2,400, not from the reserves for the office, but from FY 2015 funds to put in some fixes in the office that should, for the most part, decrease our utilities bill significantly pursuant to the SMECO evaluation of the building. So Gary is working on getting estimates for blown-in insulation. We want to replace the refrigerator. It's probably costing an enormous amount. We do need a refrigerator for a number of reasons, not least of which is that this is a refuge when power is cut off in the community. And the water tank has to be replaced. The floor also, we hope to replace. It's a health hazard for people who hear a lot to have moldy rugs back there. And $2,400 is a modest amount of money, and that presumes a lot of volunteer labor. Okay, so that's one thing. Secondly, we have over the top upped our legal estimate because we've been consulting with Shields Company for the last year and a half, and he told us that we needed to plan around $20,000, and that's in there now, in the DPPOA budget. In addition, one of the biggest things is, which I should have said at the outset, is we're beginning to shift admin costs away from the STD and into DPPOA budgeting more and more. And so you'll see this time admin related to the roads under covenant expenses. And then finally, we got an estimate this year from Carl Bowen for the basically make up for 3 years of not doing proactive tree trimming and bush hogging. And it's about $16,000. So we put in $17,000 on those accounts in our DPPOA budgets. We hadn't budgeted that. We didn't think it was going to be that big. So that's a new thing. The size of the legal is new. The rest, loosening up the belt, tightening, doing things that just have to be done, we've talked about before. And then finally, on the front page, I want to note that the total number of lots that we have in our file, 1640, is totally in agreement with what's in Prince Frederick, but Rhea spent umpteen thousands of hours last year going through every single deed and every single plat, and these are the most accurate figures we have for developed and undeveloped lots. So that's what we have in here now. This matches what was the documentation for our invoices last February. It's a small amount, but it's totally accurate. Now, what is the bottom line here? Look on the last page. So all of these expenses have been discussed before, except the ones I highlighted. If we look on the last page, our total estimate of income, and that's the income parameters are described on the first page, is 76,777. And we're budgeting total expenses of $94,714. Now, this is the second or third year that we've had to budget beyond our expected income. And we're expecting gradually, and this is because the SUD is so restricted, but we're expecting gradually to start making up for that as we continue to shift our income toward Drum Point and away from the county. Fortunately, the carryover funds added to our estimated income amount to $125,381 in funds available, and that means even though we're going beyond our expected income, we will not be budgeting in the red. We have $30,667 as a cushion, and I expect that in future years we will start building that up again. Are there any comments or questions?
Yeah, I have several questions with your proposed budget here. The number of developed lots went down 40 from what we had. That seems kind of weird.
Please do.
Max, the number 1035 came from the Census Bureau. Remember that? That's where because I got the census information and I got information from the county when I began to assess these lots.
This time here currently.
For these current assessments. Back in January when I started, I went online and I found the census report from 2010, I believe. And they said there are 1,035 residences in Drum Point.
Mm-hmm.
So then that left the balance to be undeveloped lots. But when the Finance Committee wanted information based on what I billed versus just that number from the census.
Right.
So I went back to my database and I actually counted how many, because I also,
What we actually built.
what we actually billed, because I had gotten information from the county for undeveloped lots. They had that information. So I was basing those numbers on the census and on the county undeveloped lots. But I never actually took account of what I put into that database. When I did that, these are the numbers that came out.
Okay, so
That's
you've
why it
recounted
changed.
everything we've already done again since last year.
Correct.
Okay, the next question I have is that how come the DPPOA bank end of year balance is only $519? Should be $32,418.
What the,
The end of year balance.
You may be thinking of the total funds in the bank at the end of the year. Well,
Yes.
all right, go
That's
ahead.
exactly what it is,
Go ahead.
the end of year balance.
okay, what the Finance Committee wanted instead was that number less the amount of money that had already been collected. In other words, I think they felt that we were counting it twice because we had it on deposit and then we were projecting a certain amount for expected collections.
The year-end balance includes all monies received and all monies spent. There is no duplication. The balance at the end of the year is the balance at the end of the year.
Can I make a comment? The problem with that is that on the budget, when we say this is the projected income from these lots, if some of that money has already been collected and is listed in here as the amount carried forward, and then we list it again as expected income from those lots, we are counting those dollars twice. Therefore, it makes the budget wrong.
The expected income is for the next billing cycle, though, not this one. This billing cycle has already been done and the money's mostly already been collected.
The
If I
expected
may,
income is for the money to be collected during this fiscal year.
Wrong.
And
No.
some of that has been collected already.
No, we are on cash
We're not
basis.
budgeting stuff we're gonna be collecting for the 2016 budget, we're budgeting the 2015 budget,
That's correct.
which runs from July 1, 2014 through June 30, 2015.
That's correct.
That is the money that is currently being collected and started being collected in the spring of this year. And that money, if you list it in the carryover and then list it as your projected income to be collected for this fiscal year, means you are counting those dollars twice. And
No,
that's why the finance committee asked this to be done.
okay, it's not really that way because the 2014 budget, when it was developed, counted the amount of expected revenue that they were going to get, and that's what's included. When we started the 2015, it includes the money that will be billed next January and be available for our use come that year. It's
Which
always ahead of
Skews
time.
when the money is billed and when the money is collected and when it's supposed to
I understand the skew that's there, but that's the way we've always accounted for the money. The money was received in 2014 and goes into the income for 2014. The expenses for that will certainly come out of 2015, most likely.
be. If the bill is for
But we'll
fiscal
be
year
collecting more money in
2015,
2015.
then it's not 2014 money, it's 2015 money.
Unfortunately, that's the way it's always been done.
Let me interrupt. This is the way the finance committee decided to account for it. And I actually agree with it. I think it's more appropriate to budget the money that's collected for this fiscal year in that fiscal year, but that's what the finance committee did, and the treasurer did, so.
Well, I wasn't invited to the finance committee meeting. I can see that I'm not even as a member of the finance committee now. So I really appreciate your interest in me on this item here. But you're doing it wrong. You're not describing the amount of income that's available to us this year in a bank account to be spent.
Let me note,
You're just going to be saying you're going to be using carryover money instead. You didn't put the carryover monies into these calculations either, which also skews the amount of money. It makes it a private account in your own pockets that you can take out at any time you want, rather than being transparent and presented to the public.
I think that this is smoke and mirrors, and I think it's very unfortunate that we're having this discussion with this type of tone. I think that it is simply a fact, I know that it's a fact, that the money that is billed in 2014, calendar year 2014, for DPPOA is to be spent in 2015. That is 2015 money. And some of it starts being collected right after the billing cycle in 2014 in February. To count it twice would make it appear as if we have more carryover than we do. In fact, more funds available. And it was very important to me and the Finance Committee that we have a really accurate estimate of total funds available. And in fact, this is an accounting rather than an estimate. It's based on fact because we are doing deficit budgeting relative to our income. And this is one of the first times we can see accurately the size of our cushion.
Do you have any other questions?
Well, yes, I disagree with that totally, because you need to subtract that same amount of money out of the income for 2014 under this guise, which will put you into big deficit spending in 2014, the year just passed. You can't go and change the philosophy of the way you're doing the accounting. We are not on an accrual basis, we're on a cash basis. The money was collected, that money was used to pay 2014 bills. Unfortunately, that's just the way the flow of the money comes. It's always been that way.
Okay, well, that doesn't make it right, Max.
All right, I
But it
have
certainly makes it traditional.
Let's move on
makes
to
it
the
way
next
back.
question.
I just have a quick question. Was any of that 2015 money actually spent on 2014 bills?
Certainly it was.
Because if that was the case, then how is there any carryover whatsoever when we take it out?
Exactly.
The fact that there's positive money after you pull it out proves it was not spent in 2014.
That is the bank account amount of money that is left in there. that is real money, it's not anything.
And the
Let's
money
go-
that was collected is itemized in here, is not invisible, is not hidden, and is not someplace in somebody's pocket for them to spend however they feel like later on.
You know,
I think it's up to the board to approve these changes in the
Yes, we will.
procedures.
we
And
will,
the board needs to be fully
Order,
aware of
please,
what's
Max.
going on here.
order. I would direct our treasurer and our manager to talk to Toll Griffith when they come in to get their opinion on it.
I have a note here. that we just-
So, you know, the finance committee and the treasurer thought this was the right way to go about it. I'm sorry you don't agree with it. Do you have other questions?
Yes, you increased the amount of tree trimming and snow, and bush hogging here, some $7,500. Previously it was only $300. There's no reason given for that.
Well,
You
that's,
reduced the contingency.
Excuse me,
Max, that's
before
not
you go
fair.
there, Max, I did give the reason when I gave my overview.
Yeah.
I
Well,
provided
your
the
numbers
fact,
do not add up to $20,000 provided for tree trimming. As a matter of
that's
fact,
because that's what.
it's only $13,000.
Max, do you have any other substantive questions? Because that question has not.
I hope the board members understand that these people are not being straight with you on the numbers here, that they're changing the philosophy of everything that's been done in the past and the way it's presented to this community. So you don't have $20,000 for tree trimming in there, as you said, you're wrong again. You didn't include the amount of reserve money which was already programmed in here to pay for building repairs. I don't know why you're ignoring reserves in your calculations. This budget is just as facetious as it can be by the people that developed it.
all right, I would like.
How many people were at the financial meeting?
I would like to say something.
I have a question on the floor. I
had
had the
my
floor and I had a
hand-
question. How many people were at the financial
I
meeting?
think there were 4 people, I believe.
4 people. And I wasn't invited, so.
Well, Max, I'm sorry, but you're not part of the finance committee anymore.
Well, I was a part of the finance committee, and this is the old finance committee. There is no new finance committee yet.
Max, you were the chair, I'm sorry,
Yes,
but
and I
you're
was a
not the
member of the
treasurer
committee.
anymore. You were the chair of the committee
And
by
I was a
policy.
member of the committee.
I'm sorry, you were not.
Well, I'm sorry about that.
I'm sorry, you were not. You can say
You're
you were.
pushing me out of here because you don't want to hear, and I'm sorry that the other board members have to understand this.
That's fine.
You want to do what you want to do, and you don't want to do what the community's been doing.
Well, Max, you've had your opportunity to take the shots at the board and the finance committee and the treasurer. And so, can you finish?
Yes. I would like to note a few things about procedure and experience. In terms of experience, you all know I worked at the Environmental Protection Agency. For 15 years, I was in charge of a front office staff that did budgeting for a division of 200 people. It was a multi-million-dollar budget. I have experience in this, and I also have been elected treasurer of the Brookdale Bethesda Community Association. Number 2, it's not a matter of philosophy, it's a matter of facts. And we're defining carryover, and it has been made clear at this forum. Finally, every committee meeting is posted. Any member of the community is welcome to attend those meetings. It is very important that this budget go before the community for their September meeting. It is very important that everyone recognize the foundations of this budget and that it not be undercut by strong language.
Okay, is there any other comments? Fran, do you have any comments?
No, I'm not as well versed as everybody else is here, but I think that Amy's doing a good job, and I know that that's all I can say.
Any questions over here? Aubrey? Do we have a motion on this? Can I hear a motion on the acceptance of this budget?
Am I allowed to make a motion?
Of course.
I move that the board accept this budget for 2015 to be presented to the community at its September meeting for their approval.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, is there any further discussion? All right, let's go for a vote then. All those in favor of the motion as stated, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Were there any abstentions? Very well. Do you have any more information to present to me?
I'm finished with my report.
Very well. The next thing on the, is the environmental committee. Amy, do you have anything to add there?
As you can imagine, the transition has meant I was too busy to convene the environmental committee all summer. In addition, I guess this is slightly off topic, for the last 3 months my husband has been in emergency status with his heart condition, which came on, which we discovered very suddenly. He has had open heart surgery a month ago. He's recovering extremely well, and I'm now back functioning on all 8 cylinders. So I think next time we'll probably hear from the environmental committee.
Okay. Thank you, Amy. No report from the planning committee's been to meetings. And the bylaws committee. Oh, Max.
Yeah, I have a question about the tree trimming contract. It was originally on the agenda to be approved tonight.
The tree trimming contract was
Was approved at the last meeting.
No, it was to be affirmed at this meeting because you do not approve things by email.
It was approved at the meeting.
No, it was presented at the last meeting, and you presented the amount of it, and you sent around emails asking for some confirmation and questions. And as has been the habit of this board, it has always been delayed until approved by this board in a meeting.
Yeah, I would agree with you that if it's not approved, it's not approved.
Has
But
the
that's my
contract been
recollection.
signed?
Anybody else have a recollection?
Has the contract been signed?
We have not signed a contract, just to the best of my knowledge. But I believe the board at the last meeting approved that.
I'll get a copy of the minutes.
So, do you have a point to make about that next? Or do we want to wait until find out if it's approved or not?
I'm just asking because it was on the original agenda that I received for this meeting. This is a new agenda.
The agenda is what it is, and I believe, it is my recollection it was approved at the last meeting. So, unless it comes back differently, let's
Well,
move
if it
on.
was approved at the last meeting, why hasn't it been signed yet?
Negotiations that are underway.
There was only one contract.
Still in negotiation with the vendor, the answer to that.
And you propose to pay for that $20,000 of money which is supposed to be added to
That
this
would be,
budget.
it's not $20,000, it's $17,000. And yes, that's correct. That has not been approved yet. Okay,
Here's the motion.
yeah, it was approved. Larry Rich made the motion, it was seconded and passed unanimously at the last meeting, so that was approved.
So it was approved.
There's, the only person here from the bylaw committees is Amy, but you guys haven't met, have you? So
No.
there's no report.
No report.
All right, old business, beach security. Oh, I put this on here and I forgot to put anything together. Tire boot and signage. Things have been actually pretty calm at the beach this summer, and I guessing has something to do with cameras taking pictures of everybody. It was suggested, and I considered it, and I'm not sure that I want to bring it forward at this time, but it's on the agenda, so let's discuss it. That we should, the association should buy a tire boot. For those of you who've had too many tickets in DC, you know what a tire boot is. The clamps are in your tire and you can't move the car. Until, you make arrangements to have it removed. We can buy them for a couple $100 a piece, depending on the type. It can be as cheap as $100 a piece. And I'm not, because things have settled down, I'm not sure I want to do anything about it right now, but except lay the seed for everybody to think about. Maybe it's some way we could control people coming into the beach that don't belong there, or using the boat ramp. And for a couple $100, we could have that available. There would have to be a whole procedure written up about it, how we administer it and all of that. There's a whole lot of background that would have to be done. So at this point, I'm just laying the seed for something to think about. And signage, what was the signage about, Rhea, help me?
That we would have to
Oh yeah, we'd have to have
display
signage.
appropriate signage.
That's
before we
right.
do that.
So there would be probably $100 spent on signs too, to go with that. But again, it's just something to think about. I will say that beach security has been much, maybe it's the weather, I don't know. But really, it's been very good. No real issues other than people showing up to open the gate.
We also have more beach patrols.
That's true.
More beach one.
The police officers are
Yes.
policing
The-
down there.
Amy had her hand up. Amy, you had something?
Yeah, several of us visited, met with Sheriff Evans and, was it Nutter?
It was not.
Nutter and Terry Shannon and Jerry Clark by phone about the sheriff patrolling our beaches. And that was a couple of months ago, and they have been very responsive. And I think if this continues all summer, by the way, we should consider sending a note of thanks and recognition. But at the time, at the meeting, the sheriff pointed out that our signage had to be improved or upgraded if they were going to give citations or tickets, and I was wondering if anyone could tell us the status.
We've done that.
You have done that.
No trespass.
All right, so that's finished. So it's really old business. Thank you very much.
Okay, so that's all, any other old business before I move on to new business? I'm sorry.
I had a couple of questions related to the tire boot.
Yeah,
Do we have information on any potential damage that those boots could cause to the vehicles that they are attached to?
yeah, well, obviously.
And
someone
what
tries
kind
to
of-
drive it away.
What kind of liability would DPPOA incur from that?
And we would have to make sure that we have that covered and that would be covered in the signage. But we'd have to make sure that was covered, Max.
Yeah, I would suggest here that you have no real authority to seize people's property, which is what this is. And you're going to be running into tremendous liability and insurance problems there. We've had trouble even trying to get them locked behind the gates down there, which is also a seizure of property. And you're opening up a real can of worms there. We have no authority to enforce any of the regulations that are proposed around here.
Okay.
None whatsoever.
Obviously, it needs more looking into, and I will do that. Okay, any other old business? Okay, moving on to new business then. First action under new business is reaffirm all committees. Everyone was distributed a list of committees as they are today. So I need a motion to reaffirm.
I so moved.
Do we have a second? Fran? Okay, any discussion?
Yeah, can we have a brief rundown on the makeup of each of the committees as far as any members of the committees who are there based on positions held on the board versus just being appointed to the committee as an individual?
Well, You know, I will say that the planning committee, originally when it was first set up, it's been many years ago, now, several years ago, was to reflect the officers of the board with other members. That has actually gone by the wayside somewhat. As time went on, when we reaffirmed, the officers changed, the people changed, and frankly, I see the planning committee, I personally see the planning committee as members of the community that help give advice. Members of the planning committee should give advice to the board in terms of strategic plans and planning type activities. I don't see that it needs to be any board members really. That's my personal opinion, but the floor is open to other opinions on that. And all the other committees are simply appointed.
So there's nothing in writing anywhere which says that such and such an officer or position on the board is a member of such and such a committee?
No,
The finance committee.
that's right.
The treasurer is the chair of the finance.
Max is right, treasurer is the chair of the finance committee.
Okay.
Same thing. That's by policy and procedure. Yes, Max.
I ask that my name be added to the finance committee membership.
Well, you can't nominate yourself.
I'll make
Anybody
the
want to
nomination.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Sure.
Okay, any discussion?
Well, I'll say simply that Max has served as the treasurer
Oh,
for
wait a minute,
quite some time.
time out, I'm sorry. We can't do that now, we'll have to come back to it. Because we have a motion on the floor. And the motion on the floor is to affirm these memberships. So I'm off
So we have to affirm the
Welcome.
current names
Affirm these
before we
first.
add additional names.
before we change them.
And I'll call for that question.
Okay? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay,
Okay, now I'll make the motion to add Max to the
Okay.
finance.
and a second?
Second.
All right, discussion.
And Max has served as treasurer for quite a significant amount of time, so he carries a lot of the financial history going in towards the past on what has gone on, and so his insights, I think, would be a definite asset to helping the finance committee in moving forward in some of the new directions that it feels would be beneficial to the community and the understanding of some of these financial issues.
Any other discussion? Okay, I call for the question. All those in favor of Max being added to the finance committee or appointed to the finance committee, say aye. Raise your hand.
I-
Okay.
A little longer on the hands, so 1, 2, 3, 4, no,
Okay. And against? I'm against. You're abstaining?
Draw a point, right?
Okay. Very well.
Hey, Paul, she is, what is doing?
Okay, Max is now on, so
Hello?
we'll put his name on here.
I have a copy of the minutes of the last finance committee meeting. Catch up.
You'll have to talk to the treasurer.
I thought she was in the room.
She's actually got a phone call. Okay, next thing on the agenda is to reaffirm the policies and procedures manual. Do I have a motion on that? Nobody wants to
Make a motion.
Okay,
Get it out there.
do we have a second?
1 second.
Any discussion on this? So I call for all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Can I call it unanimous if I may?
Yeah, sure. Next is The ethics document, this is a document that everybody on the board has already signed. Once you sign it, it lives on, so you don't have to sign again. Except current.
You mean I can't suddenly become a villain and?
And I will read it before I sign it.
I would think so. Okay.
Excuse me.
According to our policies and procedures, we're supposed to have our meetings the first Tuesday of a month. So the next first Tuesday is,
September 7th.
Labor Day.
Day after
September
Labor
2nd.
Day.
day after Labor Day.
Yeah, and Labor Day being the first Monday of September.
And I will not be here. So I'm going to ask you to run the meeting. Can you do that? If not, I'll go to something. We'll work it out later.
I'll verify my calendar to see exactly when my vacation is falling in there.
Yeah, I'm going to be gone for a forward, so I will be back in time for the.
Assuming that I'm not in California playing with the grandkids, then I won't have any problem with doing that.
Okay, we'll work.
Yeah, I just
So
don't,
that
can't
would be
remember what the
September,
schedule is for that.
September 2nd then. We may, or when is the next general meeting?
24th. It's a Wednesday.
So we may or may not have a second meeting that month to prep for the general meeting, depending on how things develop. I won't be here but 3 to 4 days before that meeting. Okay, nobody's here for public comment? We have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.